Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Jyoti from Anji Jo's channel, and in this week's weekly vlog we are going to talk about lots of books because I read 6 books in 6 days. So I have lots to talk about. So not all books are very long books. Some of them were very small books which I just got in between reading 2 books. And sometimes when I just want to read something small, a small story or something which is more fun, I switch to these books, and that's how I was able to finish so many books this week. It was completely unintentional. I didn't expect to finish those many books. It just happened. So let me tell you about all the books that I have read this week. So the first book that I am going to talk about is actually a children's book, but I really like this book. It is The Piano. So this is quite a unique book. I never heard about this book, to be frank, but when I got to know about this book and I purchased this book, I thought maybe it's just a fun read, but this book actually has lots of things to it. First of all, it is not a story about one single era or something. It talks about World War. It talks about independence of India. It talks about friendship. It talks about how we got freedom. So it's not in detail, so there's just glimpse of all those things. So it talks about Britishers, it talks about France, it talks about a German who is there in France at the time of World War, then Indian soldiers fighting World War II, and then again back to India, and how what all movements have happened during the time of independence, and then again a normal story of a girl who got a piano somehow, and how this piano traveled from different countries to different eras and then finally reached her. So it's a beautiful story, short version, but you can actually travel to different eras, different countries with this small and sweet story, and the moral of the story is also very nice. So I got this for my kids to read this book. So the moral of the story is pretty good. Like it talks about friendship, and friendship not in terms of only 2 people making friendship. It's about how your hobbies, how something which you are passionately involved with can also be a hobby to you, because that thing stays with you throughout your life. So in this case, how a piano became a best friend of a girl who was lonely, who didn't had any friend, and she used to write letters to God and saying that I want a friend who can stay with me. So that's a beautifully narrated story. So I will share the link of the book here in case you are interested to read it. So that was book number 1. Next book that I read this week is Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. So last week I read Show Your Work by the same author, and this is actually the first book of the author, and oh my god, I didn't expect it so much from such a tiny book. Like, it's a quick read, you can finish it within one sitting, but it is something which will make you challenge your creativity. It is something which will give you ideas and advice to be more creative. Inspiring story, it's very delightful, and I would say it's a good book, actually a great book for people who are actually in a creative field, but people like us, the normal people who are not very creatively inclined, we will actually get something from this book. So I really love this book, Steal Like an Artist, because it has so much to offer, and it's not very long, book which tells you about do this, do this, do that. No, it's a very short and simple book, but it has a very powerful message behind it. And at the end of the book, the author also gives you what are the actions that you can take on day-to-day basis to be more creative. So I enjoyed reading it book, and I have actually, I was reading it in my Kindle, and I actually highlighted many things in this particular book to revisit it afterwards. And I'm sure I'm going to revisit those things because this book gives very powerful message. So that was the book number 2. Okay, so coming book number 3 and 4. So coming back to Liba Dugo, I was talking about this particular author from quite some time now because I started reading the Shadow and Storm trilogy, the Grisha verse. So I finished the first one last week. I was reading the second one, and I was about to finish the second one, Season Storm. So the author, in the third book of the trilogy, the last one, Rune and Rising, oh my god, the author has actually, completely blown my mind. She has written this story beautifully. Actually, when I started reading the first book of the trilogy, Shadows and Bones, I liked it. The second book, it built up on the first one, so it was pretty good. But the third one has lots to offer. First of all, I'll talk about the characters. So the main character, Alina, the Duckling, and Mal. So initially when I started reading, I felt Alina was a little confused character, and I didn't actually liked her character much. But in the second book of the trilogy, She's in Storm, I actually started liking her. But in the third book, Runes and Rising, I loved her character because in first two books she was quite confused, but in the third book she is more clear about what she needs to do. She is, actually taking more responsibility. She's doing things that she needs to do. But the most important thing that I loved about the third book is I actually started liking the character of Mal, the love interest of Alina. And because in first two book I actually felt that his character is quite boring, it doesn't have much of color and all. But in third book we get to know more about him, and I liked his character in this book. Also, the best part of this book is it talks about stories. It gives lots of backstories about the character. Like we get to know how Duckling got all his power, what is the backstory behind it, what is the backstory about creating the amplifier, and how Grisha gets the power, what is the backstory behind all those things, why Mal is so important. So all these things are clear in this book, so that keeps you interested in the story throughout the book. The next thing that I liked about this book is there is kind of a twist. Actually, there are two twists in this book. So first one was okay, it was kind of a shock actually, but the second one, when it came, I was like, I never expected this to happen in this book, honestly. And that was for me the wow moment of the book. I loved the book when I read that part. So yes, I would say that out of the three books, this book is the best. But obviously it has to be, because when you start something, the first book is where you create the character, second book is where you build up on that, and the third book is where you give the big ending to the story. So yes, the story is pretty good. The three books that are there in the trilogy are actually worth reading. So these are the next two books, Season Storm, that I read and finished in this book, and then I started Rune and Rising, and I finished that too in this week. So I enjoyed these two books completely. So that was book number 4. Let's move to book number 5. So this is pretty kind of a reread and pretty good story. I think the author is well known. I don't need any don't have to give any other introduction to him. It's the Room on the Roof by Ruskin Bond. So it's a story about an Anglo-Indian boy who is 17 years old, who is orphan, and it's actually a story of, you know, coming of age of this boy, and how he used to stay with his guardian, and after one incident he rebelled against his guardian and started living alone in a town about which he was not aware of earlier, and how he get adjusted into the society, what happens there. And pretty nice, and you know, the love story, the scenes that were described, especially the nature, the Dehradun kind of things that were explained, was pretty good, and I enjoyed reading this. It was a kind of light read and I loved it. Sixth book that I read this week was this book, which I made pretty colorful here, and so this is the book that I'm talking about. It is Rework, and these books actually give you very practical advice about business, and you know, how to work in your day-to-day life. So it's something quite different from what you learn in your business schools, or what you actually practice in your MNCs. It talks about, like in MNCs we have lots of meetings, so this book actually tells you that why it is a bad idea to have, you know, lots of meetings. You know, you are pulling out people, like 10 people. If you're pulling out one for 1 hour, you're actually wasting 10 hours of productivity time, and it's not only 10 hours, it's 15 hours, because the person has to, you know, he is interrupted from the work that he is doing. It will take some time again for him to, you know, get in that momentum to start the work again. So why meetings are bad, why interruption is bad. Overall, if I would say, there's nothing earth shattering or nothing brilliant about this book in terms of idea which were given, but what makes it so special is that it gives you very practical, very logical things that we should not do or we should do, and it actually, you know, makes so much sense. And the fact that it is actually the truth that comes out from this book that makes it so special, because things that we are doing knowingly and unknowingly, which are hampering our productivity or you know, our decision making things, that are covered in this book. So as you can see, I have put so many highlights here. So because there are lots of takeaways for me from this particular book. Takeaways that I got from this book, Rework: focus more on your products or your service rather than focusing on the competitor. So what is the competitor's product? How can I get better than the competitor? So instead of that, what this book suggests, that you should focus on your product. Second takeaway for me from this book was productivity is mostly about, you know, focusing and getting that uninterrupted time for yourself to work, because what happens is that when we get interrupted, our flow gets hampered, our momentum gets disturbed. So it's important that you have that uninterrupted time for you, wherein you can get into flow and start working more, and that will give you more productivity, that will make things get done faster for you. So that was one takeaway which I think I'm going to implement in my life as well. The third thing that I really liked from this book was that motivation is mostly about momentum. So momentum, how can we get this momentum to do the things that we wanted to do, or how we get motivated to do things that we want to do. So it's mostly about, you know, start doing small things. When you have these small wins, it will, you know, create that momentum for you, by which you can actually get the bigger things done for yourself. So yes, momentum is the key to motivation. That was the third takeaway that I got. The next one, the fourth one, is very key, important for me, because I am a kind of you know, procrastinator who keeps on delaying things. Because I do this because so this book says that when you have a long list of something, most often the things doesn't get done. So it's important that you break down your big to-do list in small chunks so that you can get things done. Say for example, if you have 100 things to do in your to-do list, so if you do one thing, it is only 1% of the thing done. So instead of doing that, why not divide that one to-do list in 10 small lists? So if you get one thing done in your list 1, it is actually 10% of the thing done. So it will give you momentum, it will motivate you. Overall, the number of things, number of tasks to be done are still the same, but you are getting that sense of satisfaction, that sense of motivation by having that small list, and you feel better about doing it. And when we have small lists and we get that momentum, we get that motivation to do things get done faster. So instead of having that big to-do list, it's always better to have a small to-do list and get things done. So that was the key takeaway from this book for me. There are actually many, but these are the 4 things that I still remember on the top of my list, which are there. And also I like the fact that this is not a very long book. It is quite quick read, but it gives you so much to think about. And there are these kind of these kind of quotes and the pages which are there, which are quite nice to see in between the book. Because so that was a reading vlog of this week, wherein I read 6 books in 6 days. So that was pretty much it from my side. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more reading vlogs, and let's talk more about books. Bye.